I'm here and I'm super excited to be back with you again for the third Qnity Camp session. And we are featuring Stephanie Liebel today from Paul Mitchell, the school in Fort Myers, and we are super excited to have her. And what we're really doing here is to talk about our Money EDU program. So this program is really talking about financial literacy brought to a school owner. So this is our financial literacy curriculum that is a plug and play financial literacy curriculum that plugs into trade schools of all sizes. And so if you were on yesterday, you really saw me highlight this point, which is really the vast gap of financial literacy available for students. So we see high levels of money anxiety, very low levels of financial literacy, a major lack of financial education for both students and professionals, and very low levels of financial confidence. And that's really the gap that we're trying to bridge here. And so if you've seen our curriculum, it's 8 modules really talking about the most important financial related topics related to a student pursuing a career in beauty and wellness. And so again, it's really designed to make the topic of money less scary and anxiety provoking and making it simple and visual. Yay, we have Stephanie with us and our guest is joining us. So I'm super excited. Before I turn it to Stephanie, I am your host today. I am solo because my co-host was having tech challenges as well today. But I'm here on behalf of Qnity and Qnity for Schools. And these sessions are really not about talking about us, but really featuring educators, directors, owners, and leaders that are really using the curriculum on their own in their schools and really the things that are working with them. So I am super excited. Stephanie, I'm so glad to have you with us today. And
Thank you.
Yes, and so I can hear you great. It's so good to have you. You're calling in from Fort Myers.
Fort Myers, yes.
Yes, and you are also a Qnity ambassador. So you have a huge passion for financial literacy, which I want to get into. But before we do that, can you tell me just a little bit about your role?
So my role at the school, I'm the education leader here at the school. I'm in charge of the education that goes on here at the school, making sure that everyone, all the classes are being taught that needs to be taught, and that everyone's getting the education that we promised them at our admissions meeting. So that's my job here at the school. I do many other things. I dip into classrooms, I teach classes, I'm super hands-on in the clinic classroom. So I kind of do a little bit of everything also. So it's hard to define my role, but I just do whatever needs to be done at the school for sure.
As one does, lots of hats as it seems. And
yes.
So tell us about how you're using the Qnity curriculum at your school today.
So how I am using the Qnity curriculum is I have scheduled out, I've carved out time within our week to have all the students in a classroom together, and I played the video for them. We use the Qnity tools to go through a little bit of I put out like a 9 grid, and we walk through the lessons throughout, and then we have a little bit of a chat about it so that they feel more comfortable about talking about money. And then we just do it every single week, no matter who's there. I've just carved out that time so that every single week they're getting that lesson in. And I use the schedule, and I work at 2 schools also, so I have a schedule for each school, and then as we finish that lesson in that module, I'll just check it off, and then the next week we go to the next one. So we only have a short period of time to get into that, so I just have to pack as much as I can into that. A lot of times I'll say, okay, so I want you to do a 9 grid this week, and then we can revisit that, like bring it to class with you next week, and then we can talk about a little bit more. So
you are doing 1 lesson per week?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you feel that is in terms of, I personally really like that cadence. How do you feel like that cadence works for your students in terms of retention?
I try to make it fun. We try to talk a little bit about the week before, so we do a little bit in review. And then and I feel like it's been fine. I wish we had more time. I would love to spend a whole hour on it because I think that it's so important. So my struggle is sometimes is having the time. I also try to combine it. One of our parts of our curriculum is called Connecting to My Future, which is has to do with soft skills and things like that. So I try to bring that also into the curriculum, talking trying to combine it a little bit, because I think that sometimes the two go hand in hand. Like they need to know all of the money stuff to be successful, but they also need to know soft skills too. And so I try to combine the two classes so that they're getting both of those things. But so far I have it running a little bit smoother in Sarasota than I did here. We have more students here in Sarasota, a little less students. So I was able to incorporate it and just run with it. And every week we just do one lesson.
I love it. You also talked about that you have a conversation about it, which to me, like if I had to boil down, I feel like a broken record sometimes when I say this, but I think when I'm speaking to educators and leaders is like less talking from the educator and facilitator and more having students talk about this. And because that's when they're really going to bring it to life. What are some of the conversations that you've had? Has that rung true to you when you can get the students talking about it? It's more powerful.
Absolutely. I ask them questions all the time, and I don't pick them out specifically, but I'll like, tell me your money story, or tell me what you do for savings and things like that. Like I love when they can open up and talk about it, because all I needed to get one person to talk about it. And then
Yeah.
everybody wants to start talking about it once one or two people can open up about it. So we had to fill in some time a couple weeks ago, and I had everybody do like a 9 grid again. And I did one myself, and then I said, does anybody want to share? And no one wanted to share. So I was like, I'll share mine. So I made mine so that I could share it. And then once I started sharing it, they're like, oh yeah, and this is mine. So once I feel like I can, share and open up with them and just was able to have that conversation with them, it was just, it flowed a lot better.
Yeah. So in your school group, Stephanie, are you the only one facilitating this curriculum?
Currently, yes.
Okay. Got it. And that's true for some of our schools, right? It's like sometimes they pick one person to do it. Sometimes they have multiple educators. That's very fortunate because you happen to be the Qnity ambassador for your school. And so you obviously have this connection and this passion for financial literacy. And so tell me, it's funny because why someone should be passionate about financial literacy to me is like so obvious, right? It's like, why wouldn't you be, but like, I like to hear why are you so passionate about this topic for your students?
For my students, because I had an aha moment a couple years ago, just as Qnity started coming into my life, with a coworker and also a previous student that went here to the school. And she was out on her own in the salon, and she was doing great. And she was like, I'm going to open up my own suite. And so I was like, oh, I'm so happy for you. That's so amazing. And so I watched her go through the trials of getting a suite and then having to buy color and to support all of that suite. And so she looked at me one day and I was like, oh, are you okay? And she was like, I don't know. She was, I might have made a mistake with the suite. And I said, why? And she said, do you have any idea how much money it has cost me to open the suite? And I said, no. And she's like, my life savings, everything that I saved up for a house and things like that. And she said, I wish someone would have told me, and I wish I knew what I know now about opening a suite or opening a business or having my own thing. And she's like, I wish they taught it to us here. We teach them how to highlight hair and color formulas and cutting. We try to get that so many skills into them, practical skills, that they don't hear the money part of it, which is the most important part in my opinion. Is that if you don't know how you're going to get paid, and you don't know how you're going to pay your taxes, and you don't know all those money things, then you won't be as successful.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I always say this is so true in other trades as well, right? It's not just the trade of beauty and wellness. It's like, why does someone go to get certified or licensed in a specific career or trained in a specific career? But the gap of that is nobody is teaching them how they will actually make a living and provide for themselves and provide for their families in that career. It's just crazy that it's not taught. So I had a very similar aha moment, years and years ago too, was with someone, and she was in her 70s and she had 3 salons. And she learned this and she was like, why did nobody tell me this sooner? And, the reality is what we say, it's never too late to start, but the reality is sometimes, if you start at 70 versus 18, there is a very real reality of difference in quality of life that's going to be had. And so I totally agree with that. And I love that you guys took a stance and that, you're doing that. And I love that you do it weekly too. I think that makes it really easy from a cadence standpoint too, for you just to like know every week you're showing up and doing the lessons. Next question for you, Stephanie, is do you have a favorite module that you teach?
I think my favorite module would be, put me on the spot here, but I love the Pure one because I feel like they don't understand the difference. And I feel like everybody like wants to own their own business and they want to have, and that's their goal, and that's amazing. I was like, if that's your goal, that's super. Like, I love that for you, but they don't understand all the other things that go into it.
Yeah.
And so, but like I said, we're so busy teaching them foil placements and color that they don't understand those things. I also love the taxes because I remember myself when my kids first got their first job, they asked me who FICA was. And they're like, I don't know who's that? And why did they take all my money? So I love that, even though they're like, taxes are so boring. And they said that to me the other day. They said that, honest to God, they said that to me. They go, money is so boring. I was like, I know, but it's so important and we have to talk about it. And so they're like making a joke with me about it, but I was like, it's so important that you learn all these things. So.
I'm curious, do they say that the topic of money is boring or going through it is boring compared to like, learning how to do color? Because it's quite a difference, right?
Yeah, I think the topic, they said it's boring, and I said it is boring, and they said, and it's uncomfortable talk, and I said it's that too, but you have to know this. And a lot of times I'll say to them, if I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self this, and that seems to like ring true for them. I tell that to my own kids, and I treat the students like my own kids. I tell them what I would want when I'm telling my own children, and a lot of times it's that. If I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self to put $5 away every single day, and about compound interest and all those things, like I would be all set. Like I would be able to retire and travel and do all those things I want to do. So I think that's what makes it so important to me, is if I could go back and tell myself those things.
Yeah. Well, and to go back about the topic being boring, the reality is like some students are going to be super jazzed about this and some students are not. If they have to choose between learning how to put color on a hair or on a piece of hair versus, learning about money and taxes, like the reality is it's not going to be like, it's not going to be as sexy as some of the other, fun things that they're doing to their craft. We've done everything we can to make it hyper visual, hyper simple, but the reality is it's a necessary part of the curriculum. It's like there's a lot of subjects that I learned that I also hated, you know what I mean? But it's necessary, or maybe not hated, but just, it wasn't the favorite. And so I think recognizing that, the why coming from the educators and really being able to speak freely about that is really important for students to know. Getting that the personal touch behind it. Otherwise, it's just going to be another, subject matter and another topic about money. So what are some best practices that you have around helping to drive engagement around the topic of money?
Well, the best practices that I use are, is honestly the tools that I was given as an ambassador. So I have a 9 grid and I laminate it, and we do a 9 grid most of my classes. I also brought colored pencils. Everyone loves to color, I found out. So I brought colored pencils, and every week we put a 9 grid out, and we either work on our other 9 grid from last week or we start a new one. So that's been a best practice for me, is really just utilizing the tools. Lisa had sent me, my account manager sent me a workbook just to look at it, and I actually love it because I'm a pen to paper person, and I use that, and I show that to the students too. So I am able to actually show something in person too. And I'll like look at this, or I have the, things written in that too. So I use that. So those really are my best practices, and just talking to them and being open with them. Like I don't tell them my money story specifically, but I'll tell them bits and pieces and things that I feel like I need them to know so that they understand the importance of it. When I talk passionately about it, or when I'm in class with them, they know that I'm doing it for them, and that it's because it's important.
Mm-hmm, for sure. To your point about coloring in 9 grids and using the tool, when you're using that 9 grid, which by the way, for those of you who are not familiar, that's our visual thinking grid-based tool. It's how I'm going to put a picture of that in the next Qnity camp, because a lot of people have talked about that tool. So I want to make sure people can see it, but it's just a visual thinking tool that helps kind of break down bigger topics. So when you're making those 9 grids or working on it from last week, is that specifically like creating a recap of the prior lesson? Is it actually using the 9 grid activity that we do, or what are you doing specifically with that 9 grid?
With the 9 grid, a lot of times we'll do I will use it as a goal setting. So I talked to them about the mind map specifically. That's the one that I love the most, but I talked to them, we use it for their goal setting, and any other things they want to do. We always talk about aligning themselves up with their goal. And so we talk about that a lot within our school in general, as part of our culture. Like, what are you doing today to align yourself up with your goal? And sometimes they're like, I don't know really what that means. So what is your goal? Your goal is to graduate from school. So these are the steps you have to take to graduate. You have to come to school on time, and you have to do all that. So I love to break that out. And so we do it as a group. And so I'll just throw a 9 grid right up there, my laminated 9 grid, and I'll say, we're gonna fill it out together. And right in the middle, I'll put graduate from cosmetology school. And then I'm like, what are the things that we have to do? So then I'll just write right around the 9 grid all the things, and they're talking to me about it. And so, like I said, it opens up that conversation out, and someone will say, oh, you got to come to school on time. I'm like, exactly, you have to come on school on time. So it's just a way that I can utilize them, get them talking about it and filling out the 9 grid at the same time. So
Awesome. Are there any other best practices that you would share for someone looking to bring in this program, or someone who's using the program and wants to try something different?
I love the videos that we have that you use. I think the videos, utilizing those in the classroom, playing the videos, the people in the videos are so I feel like they're relatable to the students, and the students really like have a connection with them. And I think that the videos are great. So I would definitely utilize the videos and the tools that come along with the program.
Yeah, I actually totally agree with that. It's like, let the program is built out with the goal being that educators can do what they do best, which is really using the tools and then facilitating conversation, right? And so playing the videos, I'm curious, we have 3 learning pauses in the videos. Do you stop after each one and talk?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the learning pauses. I just told Lisa that when I was talking to her the other day, because I said I love the learning pauses. I didn't realize they were there at one point, and I was like, let me just and I touched it, and I was like, oh. And she's the one that told me it was called the learning pause. So I was like, oh, I'm so glad I know that's called that, because it's exactly what I used it for. It's just to like, I hit that, and then we just reviewed for a few minutes. We have such a small window of time, but also we lose them so quickly. They have such a hard time sitting in a classroom. So when I can pause that for a minute, and then that just helps to like regroup and regain them. And I'm like, okay, and then I can ask them a few questions here and there. And then I go back to that video. That's why that video is so strong. And it's 3 minutes, it's 5 minutes, it's 13 minutes. They're small enough videos where it keeps their attention. And then I can do that little bit of a pause, and then we can talk as a group and then go back to the video.
I love that you're doing it. I think it's so important to break it down in more of that micro learning. Like, we've even talked about how can we make this even more micro in our next version, where it's like more bite-sized chunks so they can retain, pause, have a conversation. So I love that you're utilizing those, because I think it's really powerful. Well, I'm just looking at time. Those are all the questions I've got for you, Stephanie. Is there anything else you would say to the group? you know, when you're talking about with your experience as an ambassador, you know, your experience in, you know, the two schools, any recommendations, thoughts?
My recommendation is absolutely positively to become an ambassador.
Mm,
It has helped. The tools that we get on ambassador calls have helped me so much. They have helped me with so many ideas. There's so many little ideas. Someone came up with like a money mini, and I was like, brilliant. And so I started doing money minis. And so there's so many like little ideas that you get from everybody, and it also helped me to just come out of my shell a little bit more and talk and get comfortable being uncomfortable sometimes and having those conversations. So I've loved being an ambassador and jumping on those calls, and they're
mm,
not very long. And I also, it helps you to go over the material. So a lot of times I've aligned myself and I'm like, oh, this was a great like lesson that we did on taxes, and so I'm gonna jump to that lesson to incorporate that into my class next week because it was fresh in my mind.
yeah.
So I just love that we share, and that we actually get extra tools. So that's how I got a workbook, and that's
Mhm.
how I got some of the fun 9 grids that I can bring into the classrooms and things like that. So
You get
it's
some perks as an ambassador for
you
sure.
do get some
So
perks.
yes.
Yeah.
So if any of you are existing schools, and you do not have an ambassador, this is a little reminder. Just go to the Qnity for Schools website and look at the application. It's really great to have someone who's really interacting with students to be part of this role. And it just helps, you know, give additional value and training to that educator, leader, or director. So Stephanie, thank you so much for joining. And I'm so sorry for the panelist link challenge, but I'm glad you made it on. And really, really enjoyed having you, and thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. It was great
You're
talking
so
with you.
welcome. Yes,
Bye
you
bye.
too. And so for everyone else, if you're curious more about exploring the curriculum, if you're not a money school, you can scan here, or you can find us on our website at qnityforschools.com. And also make sure you stay in touch with us on Instagram. That's another great way we try to take some of the content and make it more bite-sized learning environment or learning pieces for students and educators to take away. So with that being said, we are ending 4 minutes early. So thank you all. And we've got a great guest again tomorrow, Danielle from Hayes Academy. So we'll see you same time, same place. Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.